welcome to your fourth Java programming tutorial. I am Evan, and in this tutorial, I will talk about Scanner and how to utilize Scanner into smaller programs. I will also talk about if statements to set up proper conditions, as well as mass class methods. Scanner is the opposite of system out. It will take user input and put it into console. Then the console do some algorithms and calculate the result. Scanner is the first instance of an object that we are going to have in this class. Do not freak out by the word object. You will get it very soon. So first, we have to create a scanner object. But before you even start to create the object, you have to import it. So before your first line, put some enters, and above, use the keyword import. Then java.util.scanner. So write it exactly like that. That will import the scanner class into your main class. Because for Java, you will need to reserve some space for the memories. It will not import all the classes by default because it will take a lot of time to compile as well as to run them. So you have to import what you need, but nothing else. So right now, we're going to create a scanner object. So scanner, give it a name. I'm just using input, but you can use any name in here. So that's very important to use any name, not input like mine. You can use any other names like in or user input. Anything will be fine. So I'm just using input. So equals the keyword new. So this keyword means that you are creating a new instance of an object. So next scanner. That's the scanner object, and inside the parentheses, use system.in. So system.in is to use your keyboard by default to input something into the console. So right now you have an instance of an object. You want to make that object useful. So before I keep proceeding, you only have to create scanner once, because objects you can use it over and over again without creating a new one. But when you're going to different objects, for each object there are totally different things, then you have to create new objects. But in scanner, you only have to create it once. Do not create it multiple times because you will wasting memory for no reason. By the way, do not get confused. When you create an instance of an object, you are using it or initializing an object. But writing an object is to writing the actual code that goes inside the object. That you are not using it, you're writing the object. Now, there are built-in methods within Java for the scanner class. I say that class holds objects. Whenever you create an object, it's referring to a class that either Java built in or you created on your own. As a result, each object should be in a separate class. Now, scanner have methods called input.nextDouble or input.nextInt, and etc. All the primitive types are there for you to use. Now let's create a circle radius calculator. Now in here, you want to always prompt the user what to input before your actual code to input for the scanner to take in place. So this creates an instance of an object, but it's not using it right now. So you can use the system out down here, system.out.print. I'm not using print line because I will show you like there's a format error when you use print line here. So enter your radius for the circle. Now after you finish the system out, you want to go to the next line, and right here you're trying to get the user input. So use input dot whatever the data type you're expecting the user to have. So next double. So this in here, you're expecting a double. So if the user input a char, it will not work. If they input a string, it will not work. But for the next double, it will work for int. So if you put next double and the user input an int, it will work. It will still work. So right here, you are getting the user input, but you don't have a variable to hold this input. So before everything else, you want to create a new primitive type variables. So double user input equal to 0 for now. Now let's assign this user input into the assign this next double into the user input. So user input equals input.next double. So then the time user input the value, then it will go into the user input variable. Now we want to do the actual calculation for the area of the circle. So now we want to do the actual algorithms for the area of the circle. So now you have to use a variable to hold the final result. So get another variable, primitive type, call it double final result, set it equal to 0 for now. Now in here, you want to use several methods. So you want the final result be the number of the algorithm that you have to calculate. The area of a circle is pi r squared. So pi, you can use 3.14, that will work, but there's the accurate one. So math.pi, this is the one that will give you the accurate pi result. So you can use this or you can use 3.14, whichever one you want to use, but this one will be more precise than the 3.14. So multiply this by the r square. So mass dot power. So the short for power is pow. That's the command. And inside there, the first thing is to give the input of what number do you want to square. So user input, comma, what's the power? So second, that's the to the square. So put a semicolon there. So it will assign the pi times r square equal to the final result. So right now you want to system.out.print parentheses, submit two double quotes, final. Now you will have this whole string of numbers. So if that's what you want, then okay, that will be done. But if you want it to be 2 decimals, 3 decimals, or even 4 decimals, but without all those long strings, you can use a method called printf. So system out dot printf, that's print function, and before that use the parentheses and have a double quote in there. Then inside there you will need to use the percentage sign and then followed by dot whatever number of digits you want after the decimal. So I wanted 2 decimal places, and after the 2 you will need a f. The f stands for floating point, so you will know that this is a floating point result that's converted into less decimals. So save this, compile it again, run it, use 4 again, and you will only give you 2 decimal places, but the other thing will be identical. Now in here, you realize that it rounds itself 0.265 rounded up to 0.27, 50.27. Now, if this is the one that you want, then okay, you're done. But if not, you want to just drop the decimal but only have the whole number, you can use another method called mass.round. Inside there, you will have the number that you want to round. So final result, save this, compile it. Of course, delete the F. Now it will round it for you. So the 50.2, so round it up, so it becomes 50 and without any decimals. So in this case, if you want to round it up to becomes 51, you can use another method called mass.ceil. Compile this and run it. and press 4, it becomes 51. So there are times where you want to use steel instead of floor. There are algorithms in accounting that will use steel a lot, so keep in mind for that. But you realize that in this case that you are not using any conditions to set up your input. But what if your user input a negative number for radius? It will not work. It does not make sense anymore. So you want to set up conditions, but after the input. So you want to get the input first, then check the input before you go on to the actual calculating algorithm. So after this, you're trying to use if. That's the new keyword that we are going to have to use a lot in this lessons. Now, if user input is less than or equal to 0, just less than 0, so equal to 0 means the circle does not exist. So in here, if the user input is less than 0, we'll print out a line. Say some line, just print out a line. Let's call this radius cannot be less than 0. Now, put the else. So if this one failed, then it will go to the else statement. So here you're checking if the user input is less than 0, which is false, then it must be greater than 0. Now, if it's greater than 0, we can do the algorithm. So copy the algorithms in here. Now we will see that there is a condition that we can check. Now compile this again, run this. If I input -5, radius cannot be less than 0, so it will exit by itself. Now I want to run it again. Let's use 5. Now it will give you the part that it will actually calculate the algorithms and print out the result. Now in here, I previously mentioned that you will use print but not print line. But see, what if I use print line here? I enter the radius for the circle, so I use 5. You will enter in the next line instead of after the line, like in here. So enter your radius for the circle, put a space bar behind it, and then use the print but not print line. It will give you a beautiful interface instead of the one that will go on to the next line. So here, 5, it will print out. Now you will get this beautiful answer. But if you want to have something before this, like the answer is, so be careful that the mass dot still, this is still here. You either want to delete this one and then use some double quotes answers colon and plus. So when you're joining 2 or more items, you have to use the plus sign. So save this and run it. 5. The answer is this number, but be very careful that when you have the mass.steel, inside there must be a integer or a double. So you want the answer, it have to be outside of the method. So answer some column and plus this the entire method. So in here, oops, you will see that the number 79, that's the steel, and then you also have the string answer. So that's it for this tutorial. I will have some homework for you. So there are 2 questions. You will find the answers in the link in the description. But be sure to fully understand this lesson so you won't get lost in the next lesson. So the first question will be this. We'll make it clear for you to see. So choose conversion either from Celsius to Fahrenheit or from Fahrenheit to Celsius. Then calculate the temperature to match 2 decimal places. You can find the conversion from Celsius to Fahrenheit and vice versa from Google or something. I'm too lazy to find it out. So number 2. Number 2 will be this. Calculate the area and volume of a cylinder, giving the radius, matching the result with 2 decimal places. So those two are pretty self-explanatory. So if there's no questions, I will see you in the next tutorial. In this tutorial, I talk about the scanner, the condition class, as well as more math class method. Remember that math class is the class, not your math class that you go to. So until then, stay active, be happy, and plan algorithms.